Hey, this is John McGlynn 75 on the X. I'm opening up my new show, Dynasty Evaluation. It's a spinoff of Commissioner Evaluation. We're going to talk about some year-round coverage of Dynasty Fantasy Football, rookie analysis, free agency, NFL draft coverage, landing spots, mini camps, training camp, preseason, in-season, waiver wire injuries, news, rumors, trade talk. We're going to be out here all year round just making shows happen. So thanks for joining us today. We'll get started. We are here, Commissioner Evaluation. Oh, new show, but a familiar face. JT Orange, Justin Taylor, my guy, the co-host with the Mo-host, is back, better than ever. What's going on, brother?
Hey, man, pumped to be here. Pumped to be on Fancy and Frames. A new show is should be a good time.
These guys got some 1080 DP, all the cameras, all the lights, all the good stuff here. It's like playing with a new set of crayons. So what's new, man? You've been doing any Senior Bowl watching stuff like that recently?
Yep, I've been watching the Senior Bowl. I was hoping to get down there. I know me and you were talking about it, and just work schedules didn't work out. We were hoping to be there in person. I've been watching what I can on NFL Network, pulling those guys in, and the sleeper finally got the rookies imported. It's been mock draft craziness. The whole last 2 weeks, I've been mock drafts every day, doing all kinds of mock drafts, and I got a new C2C startup with a couple buddies of mine. We got started up this last week, so we're about 10 rounds into that sucker. So my first draft of the year is already underway.
Would you draft every day except for like a week before the actual play?
Last year, basically the day after the NFL draft, I was actively in a draft every day up until I think it was a week before the season started.
Yeah, I did a lot of drafts last year, but not that much. A lot of them, I got a million drafts that were all like, 1 minute timers or 30-second timers. And it was like, poof, and next thing you know, you start doing a draft, you're like, oh shit. But these rookie drafts, when you get into them, you'll see, like, you get the guys like Isaiah Spiller and stuff like that, who were the number one running back at the beginning of the season, and things just change at 40 times, and all kind of factors go into guys getting hurt, and, all that stuff happens. And do some drafts now. That's what drafts are for. That's what these rookie mocks are for. That's what all mocks are for that matter. Just to kind of gauge, see where guys are going, who's moving up boards. And when you see guys moving up boards, that's when you do your research. Anything you didn't see yet, what happened here? Start looking in, watch the videos, hear the tapes, read on Twitter, read on X, read on whatever, That's when you find out, like, why is he moving up? So when your rookie drafts come or your initial startup drafts come, you're informed of what's going on. You know why they moved up. You know if the jump was justified, if it was something that just happened because, you're in it. If you're in a bunch of mock drafts with the same people all the time, a lot of players aren't going to move. Get out of those, with your buddies. Do them all the time. Do them once a month, something like that. But jump in other drafts with new people, different voices, different opinions. See, like, wow, this guy took him here. This guy took so-and-so here. That's how you learn. You're not going to learn by drafting the same people or doing it on a computer every day where it's the ADP is almost the same. So you getting all these drafts and stuff is absolutely fantastic jumping around like that.
Yeah, I like it too because, you'll see some of these guys that will drop once the real draft happens. They don't get great draft capital, but you want to remember those guys. Maybe a guy that was getting taken, early to mid-second, late second round, all of a sudden they're dropping because people hated the landing spot. It doesn't look like they've got much room to get playing time. Those are the guys to keep in mind that you can grab maybe later in your draft just on talent-wise, and other people may be sour on them, but they could be good value later on.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. So there's some coaching changes happened. Let's just touch on that for a minute, just because this does affect the teams that they were sent to. Arthur Smith hired we'll start with this one, JT, because I'm sure it's your favorite subject of all. Arthur Smith hired as the Steelers offensive coordinator. So tell me about how you feel about your black and yellow guys over black and yellow, how they're doing with Arthur Smith.
Yeah, this is one that when it first came out, I was just like, I don't know. I don't know if I like it. I don't know if I hate it. I've been trying to read a lot. I actually, this morning, Alex Kozora from the Steelers Depot put up a really, really nice article, about 5,000-word article on just kind of the history of Arthur Smith, his coaching philosophy, kind of where he comes from. I listened to that this morning. It gave me a lot more insight into kind of who he is as a coach. Obviously, fantasy-wise, People were really upset that he didn't get the guys in Atlanta the ball, had problems getting Drake London the ball, Kyle Pitts. Everybody was mad about Bijan. I lost a bunch of Bijan bets when he didn't get touches. But I'm starting to come around to him. The more I'm reading some of this stuff, and he was a really good offensive coordinator for the Titans. And I think the Steelers want to get back to running the ball more. And I think this makes sense. I think they can get a nice running game going here with him. Arthur Smith has the zone read. That's kind of his thing. He likes to run that outside zone. I think it really helps Najee. And they'll use 2 running backs. So I think Jalen Warren's still in the mix. I think both those guys are going to be worth it in fantasy. The question is going to be can Kenny Pickett, is he the man? Can he step up? I think they're going to run a lot more play action, which if the running game's going well, I think only helps the QBs for the Steelers. And you saw when he was having the running game work really well in Tennessee, Ryan Tannehill was one of the most efficient quarterbacks and one of the most efficient offenses in the NFL in those 2 years with him being the offensive coordinator. So I think there's definitely some upside. I think it's nice that the Steelers brought in someone from the outside. It's not typical of them. They usually always bring somebody else that's in the staff already. They move them up when guys move on or get fired. So I'm starting to talk myself into this Arthur Smith a lot. And for all the Najee and Warren shares I have, I like it. And the one thing is people forget outside of Atlanta, when he was actually in Tennessee, he got his studs the football. When A.J. Brown was there, for how much people complained, he got a ton of targets. And so I think that means a lot for George Pickens. I think it's going to be a lot for Deontay Johnson. I still think this team has a chance to be a good offense and good fantasy offense, but it comes down to quarterback. If you don't get good quarterback play, it's going to kill everybody.
So I should grab all the Darnell Washington shares I possibly can right now, right? That's what you're saying?
I did. Darnell's still a work in progress. I like him. Even when they drafted him, I thought he would be a 2-3 year minimum project. I'd love to see them unleash Muth this last year. He had his worst year this past season, but that was mostly due to injuries. He missed a ton of games with injuries, and he had games where he just got zero targets. So hopefully they'll get him back on track.
Yeah. Scott Cole will be on the show next Friday. Arthur Smith would be great for Najee and Warren, but Pickens not so much. So he disagrees a little bit.
I definitely think the running backs. Yeah, I definitely think the running backs is going to help. Now, can they get efficient in the passing game? That to me is where it becomes worrisome, and that's where I think a lot of Steelers fans are on the fence. They're like, are we going to actually be able to get these guys the ball? But I think it's a situation a little like Atlanta. Ritter and Heineke were the quarterbacks, and it's, if the quarterback's not playing well, it's hard to get the wide receivers and tight ends the football.
Could Jalen Warren be a good buy in Dynasty right now? From Scott?
I love Jalen Warren. I'm all over Jalen Warren in Dynasty. I have a ton of leagues where I have him and Najee, and I played them both in a bunch this past year. I think because if you've looked at it in the past, Bijan, Tyler Algier, even with Derrick Henry, he's still got other guys to football in Tennessee. So I think they're both going to get a pretty heavy share, and I think they're going to want to run the ball more. So I think they're both going to be very usable. Najee and Jalen Warren are going to both be very usable Dynasty players next year. And again, a lot of people are down on the offense. This might be the time to buy some of those guys.
My favorite thing is to do is have these guys on my team and then, not think they're not going to produce and then let Jalen Warren go for a mid-third or early 4th round pick. And then he turns into a stud. And I'm like, shit, this is great. Now I got a mid-4th round pick. I'm going to get a backup tight end for what is Jalen Warren now.
John, when you move guys, I know they're due to hit for me. So I'm like, when you're just like, I traded Jalen Warren away, I was like, more Jalen Warren for me now. I want him in every league.
Just for everybody's information, yesterday I traded away TJ Hawkinson in a win now league. I traded away TJ Hawkinson because I already have a couple good tight ends on the team, but I got Bryce Young in return. So I'm like, in a super flex dynasty 12 team. So it was one of those things where I don't trust all next year of TJ. I could buy him low if he doesn't produce very well, but I think Bryce Young is a buy low right now. So I just kind of had him. It's a nice 3rd or 4th quarterback on the team. So go get TJ Hawkinson. He's going to blow up next year. That's all
He's going to come back, better than ever, way earlier than everyone expected, just because you traded him away.
4 touchdowns in the first game of the season. That's my luck kind of thing. Who will be
the quarterback? I was going to say Jorge's in here with who's the quarterback. I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. I think really you're going to have to wait to get into camp. You're going to have to wait to see kind of what
Mason Rudolph.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. I think Mason Rudolph. I do think he's going to get a shot. I think they'll definitely sign him and bring him back. I really do. And I could see it with a new offensive coordinator. I could see it being a wide open competition.
Yeah.
Him going in. And if you've listened to Arthur Smith talk, he says he doesn't care where you were drafted, what you're getting paid. He's playing the guy that's playing the best. The guy that's performing is who he's going to play. And if you're Mason Rudolph, you got to like to hear that, because that means you're going to go in with a real shot at possibly winning this, because I don't think that happened this past year. I don't think there was any chance. I don't think they even thought Rudolph gave him any look whatsoever to be the starter. He looked good at the end of the year. He's a guy, I talked about it. When they drafted him out of the third round at Oklahoma State to originally be Big Ben's backup, I really liked the pick. I liked him at Oklahoma State. I thought his guy's got a cannon. I thought it was a great pick. You know, he had some issues where he just did not look good. Confidence-wise, he looked terrible. But it looks like maybe he's resolved that. He took a couple of huge hits, played some bad games a few years ago, but man, the guy looks like he's matured. As a Steelers fan, I'd love to see him bring him back, but at some point, Pickett or Rudolph, or if they bring in somebody else, somebody's got to absolutely win this job and prove that they're the man. Because again, this team, ton of injuries last year, still made the playoffs. We're still in the hunt with a ton of offensive injuries, and defensive injuries were just astronomical, and then not great QB play. So if they can figure out the quarterback situation, I think the Steelers team is going to be in the mix.
Yeah, Mason Rudolph did a pretty good job of holding off Kenny Pickett at the end of the year last year. I think it was not so much injury, just Mason Rudolph's play that kept him on the field. So,
yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think, Pickett coming back from the injury probably could have played if they needed him to, but I was all for staying with Rudolph. He was playing well. They had momentum. I don't think they needed to make a change right there. But I'm hoping Kenny P bounces back. We expect all these guys to hit right away, and I just don't think it's super realistic. He had some flashes last year where I really liked him, but he also looked like he had lost some confidence and was just missing reads and missing wide open guys and forcing balls where he didn't need to. So hopefully, whole offseason, these guys get together, and hopefully it's one of those things where they both ball out and play great, and it makes it super hard on the coaching staff to figure out who to play.
That's all you can ever hope for, is that these guys, do well, and you got a couple, bullets in the chamber, of your firearms. So that's all it is. One of my favorite news topics here is Seahawks hire Ravens defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald and fire Pete Carroll. He gone. Well, I guess they just kind of moved on from him. So you know how I feel about Pete Carroll.
I know you. I know you.
Life's a better place.
You've been asking for this for years, John. But they finally go something different. I think the Seahawks are going to try to get back to the that powered the doom days, those guys where the defense just took over. They've got a lot of really good pieces there.
Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting to see kind of what changes they make with the Seahawks with a new staff, new head coach, kind of going from there. I'd still love to see Drew Lock get a shot somewhere, but it'll be interesting to see if they kind of hold him or maybe he becomes available for someone else.
Yeah.
He got a couple shots this last year. He played pretty well. So
Sure did. I mean, that team is stacked, man. There's a lot of talent in the team. So I think everybody's kind of stuck in their roles right now, but I have a feeling this whole season is going to be a shakeup with, the people moving on, different coaching, different philosophy. It'll take a year for other teams, or a half a year anyway, for teams to figure out the new offensive system. And let's get serious. I mean, Mike Macdonald's a fantastic defensive coach, so defensive coordinator, and I'm sure he's going to make a great head coach. So that's a little different. It's not just run first with 1,000 people, Pete Carroll kind of philosophy, and the same, same passing routes for his intended receivers, but we'll see.
I think the Seahawks got talent. I mean, they definitely got talent. People know that. So I think they slightly underperformed. They were a weird team this last year. It's like just when you thought they weren't very good, they would play great. And then just when you thought, okay, this team is pretty good, they would just lay a stinker. I mean, it was like they were just all over the place. They quickly got on my ban list to not bet early in the year, because I'm like, this team, I have no idea what they're going to do week to week. So, but they definitely have talent. So if Geno can keep it rolling, and get back to kind of what he did 2 years ago, the defense looks good. I mean, I think JSN's just going to is going to improve more and more.
Yeah.
I like Kenny Walker, Charbonnet. I'm sure I'm going to try to get him more in the mix this next season. So a lot of talent there, though, in Seattle still.
A lot of talent. Todd Bowles is doing his best Will Smith empty room gif. His whole team just kind of walked away from him, I guess, is the way to say it,
I mean, he did a heck of a job with Tampa this year, but it's going to be interesting to see kind of where they go from here. Do they sign Mike Evans? Do they keep him? What other moves can they make? The defense was pretty good this year at times. They had some games where you're just like, what's happening? But like against the run, they were one of the better teams in the league. Offensively, Baker's, I mean, literally career highs all around, resurrect his career. So now the question is, what do they sign him to? Does he get a huge deal? I can't see him give him a huge deal. I think maybe a Geno Smith type deal is maybe where they go. They give him like maybe 3 or 4 years of pretty high salary, but not like astronomical. But it'd be really surprising if they just moved on from a quarterback, even if it was a bad division. He still won them the division and still won them a playoff game. And it's not like he played terrible. I mean, they had the bad pick at the end of the game against the Lions, but it's not like the Bucs weren't in that game either. So to me, it's hard to just turn around and move on from Baker after kind of what he brought you last year from Tampa.
And on top of that, I feel like he just wants to have a home. He wants he wants to yes, they gave me a chance. I showed them what I can do. We got some continuity here. Let's keep moving on with this team. He just all these guys in the NFL, they don't want to, some guys want to run for the money, skill position players, but for the most part, these quarterbacks want to go somewhere stable and be there for a couple years and lead a team and see the team build around them. That's kind of the Justin Fields thing right now. That's so Baker Mayfield, I'm sure he just wants a home. He feels secure where he's at right now. He's got the trust of the head coach. He's got, the love of the players around him, so I could see him settling in for a 3-year deal, and then like the first 2 year and a half guaranteed kind of thing like that. And then, go from there.
Absolutely.
Let's see. What's a reasonable return in Dynasty for Tyler Lockett? Speaking of it, now we're talking about Pete Carroll a second ago.
Oh, man, people were selling Lockett a ton at the end of the year. Last year, I had anybody was like not in the playoffs trying to get rid of him to a contender. I was consistently, depending on the league, having to pay at least a second. Sometimes I was getting him for a third, if it was an early third, depending on how desperate a team was just to kind of bail from him. I think it's going to be interesting to kind of see where Lockett moves forward. He's getting up there in age. He's kind of a boomer bust guy a lot of the times. I like Lockett. He's a nice piece. I traded for him and teams I was really desperate for wide receiver help. I don't know at this point if I'd be willing to give a second for him. If I was on a playoff push last year, I definitely would have given a second. But my problem with the second this year is I like so many of the rookies in this rookie class of wide receivers. I'd almost rather take a shot at one of these rookies. It was a third rounder, and I definitely need, I'm going to play Tyler Lockett. I need him to be like a flex play or something on a consistent basis. I could give up a third for him, but looking at this wide receiver class, last year I gave up some seconds because I needed them, but I don't think I would do it right now just because there's so many guys I want in that second round right now.
All right, real fast, yes or no. So I'm going to give you some players. You tell me yes or no. Okay, you're making a trade with some of your league mates. Jahan Dotson for
would I trade for him?
Would you, if you had Jahan Dotson in your team and somebody offered you Kenny Lockett? These are straight up trades, okay?
So one for ones. Okay, yep. Man, I think Lockett's a better player, but if I'm a builder, if I'm building, I'm going to take my shot on Dotson just to think maybe he's going to come back and bounce back. But if I'm a contender, like I'm a team and I'm going to play Lockett every week, I'd probably take Lockett just for who he is, just because I know I'm going to get something. And Dotson, man, I'm in million shares of Dotson last year. I thought I was ready for the freaking to the moon, and he disappointed.
Yeah. Let's go with somebody a little bit older than I. Okay, so we don't do the trade for youth kind of thing. Mike Williams at a buying low right now. Are you trading away? Are you trading to get Mike Williams, or are you keeping Tyler Lockett?
Mike Williams, he's got the talent, but man, the guy can never stay healthy. I mean, he is just every year you're like, oh, I thought this was the year he was going to be able to stay healthy and be good. I'm probably taking Tyler Lockett. Mike Williams is always hurt, man. I'm risk averse to him. I have not had him on a team in probably 2 or 3 years at this point. I'm probably taking Tyler Lockett.
The thing is, I guess the thing is that every time that you have a situation where you get I don't know how to say it like correctly, but Mike Williams just hurts himself. He goes up for the ball. He's an aggressive receiver. He does all the things he's supposed to do, but he catches the ball in such awkward situations. He's injury prone because of the way he plays football. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. But I mean, tearing your ACL is a whole different story. Tearing your ACL or tearing your lower, whatever the thing is in the back of your foot to your Achilles. Those are freak injuries. So you can't blame it on that. But Mike Williams just hurts himself the way he plays football. So he's kind of a stay away from me. I don't really know, but what about Gabe Davis, a guy like that who's in contract talks, the same as Lockett, someone like that? What do you do there?
Gabe's a lot younger, but I'm not a Gabe Davis guy.
Neither am I.
They both seem like they're both better best ball players because you don't have to figure out if you were starting or not. Gabe Davis and Lockett both are much more guys I'd rather have on best ball teams. I'm probably taking Lockett. But that's also just because I have never been a Gabe believer. I also would think I could get Lockett plus for Gabe Davis for most people, because I think most people like Gabe Davis more than I do.
All right, here's just a hot topic one, okay? Marvin Mims for Tyler Lockett.
Ooh, I like Marvin Mims. I still think Mims has got a shot to be really good. I don't know what happened there with Sean Payton last year when they just all of a sudden decided they hated him and refused to play him. But I like Mims. I'm probably taking Mims just because I think he's got high upside still.
Yeah, Chris B. Mike Williams for weeks 1 to 4 and Lockett the rest of the way.
100% correct. Chris is right. That's exactly what. Take Mike Williams for the first 4 weeks, trade him right before he gets hurt for Tyler Lockett, and then you're golden for the rest of the season. I like your move there.
All right, back to coaching carousel talk. We get distracted very easy around here, just so everybody knows, okay? Raider Nation, the Nation. My neighbor's a big Raiders fan. He's a Raider Nation all the time. So Raider Nation, Josh McDaniels out, Antonio Pearson. That's a good locker room move. I just feel like that team really, really trusts their coach, really likes their coach. He was winning football games. The team chemistry just feels better with him at head coach. So how do you feel about that move?
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Team chemistry is the best guy. Only thing I'm bitter about is I had the Raiders under this past year because I am anti-Josh McDaniels all the way. I was like, he's going to blow. This team's terrible. He's an awful coach. I'm like, there's no way this team's going over. And then, of course, Antonio Pierce comes in and the team is playing great. Everybody loves each other all of a sudden. So good for him, but killed my over-under there. But I definitely think it was the right hire if you're the Raiders. He just seems like a guy the players like. And he made that team go with undrafted, or what did Aiden O'Connell go? He was undrafted, wasn't he? Almost positive he was. If not, he was drafted late.
Really late, if not undrafted.
I can't remember on that one off the top of my head for some reason. But yeah, I actually thought when they made the move to go to him from Jimmy G was a really good move. I was like, who Jimmy G is. You guys were probably weren't making it to the playoffs. I'm like, see what that young guy has. Because then you go, okay, is this a guy we can maybe build around the future? And if not, now, and you're like, okay, let's bail on him and let's go get somebody new.
Right. Yeah, I thought it was a good move. I hope they bring Josh Jacobs back because he played pretty well in that whole system. So, Patriots, Bill Belichick out, Jared Mayo in. Just kind of a sad ending to Bill Belichick. I just felt like the organization owed him something. Like, stick around for another year or so, no matter how good you are, just get the guy the all-time winning record. He got that close. How do you bring in that much money for this long a span and then say, hey, man, you had a bad season, you're out? Like, that's such BS. Man.
I know. I didn't think there was any way they weren't going to let him kind of leave on his own terms. I just thought that Kraft would, with all they've been through, would be like, hey, do you want to give it one more year? We'll give you one more year. We'll kind of go. Whether you believe the reports or not, people said like the big, rift was the Mac Jones thing. Kraft wanted to play Mac Jones. Belichick didn't.
Right.
Belichick wanted to get rid of him. I don't know. It's always tough because I know sometimes you just you think, okay, we need a new voice in the locker room. And I don't know much about Jared Mayo outside of him as a player. I thought he was a really good player. I'm sure he's going to be a good coach. But what does he really bring you more than what Bill Belichick brings, other than a newness? Fresh. Is there anything other than something fresh? Is he really bringing you more than what Bill Belichick can give you? I don't know, but I guess if you're going to start all over, I guess if you're the Patriots, I guess now's the time, because I'm not sure I see this team getting much better right away without drastic changes at QB, wide receiver. I mean, they just have almost nothing offense, which is sad because they've really got a pretty solid defense.
They always have a good defense, and especially with a guy like Jared Mayo is fantastic. I mean, you can't say that his coaching is going to his playing is going to transition onto the field. You can never guarantee that's going to happen, but he's definitely a defensive-minded coach. So expect pretty much par, especially learning under a good coach like Belichick, a good defensive-minded coach like Belichick. I imagine he's going to bring a lot of that back to the table too. So just Scott Cope says, watch for the Patriots to be the worst team in the NFL year coming. Well, possibly. I mean, that's why they're making changes.
I actually think he's right. I mean, I think they're a bottom 5 team in the league this year. I mean, and then you don't know what they're going to do in the draft. Are they going to go QB? Do they take like a Drake May or somebody? But I could definitely see the Patriots being one of the 5 worst teams in the league this upcoming season.
And as a Dolphins fan, I absolutely love that. Thank you very much. Dynasty Deviant, thanks for joining. Odds are the Pats are losers for the next 20 years. Well, by these guys and haven't watched parades and Tom Brady falling all over himself. Yeah, goodbye. Beat it.
I definitely could see a multi-year, at least 5-year rebuild coming here. I really could.
That's what I'm talking. Dolphins fans unite. Let's go. Fins up, baby. As soon as I get rid of Tua, me and you're going to be really good friends. Yeah, we'll get on a Tua rant later or something. Or don't get me started. But anyway,
I know. I wasn't even going to say anything. I was just going to let it roll.
Ron Rivera out, Dan Quinn in. Another one. I feel like it's almost like one of those Spider-Man memes where the guys point at each other and it's the same person kind of thing. It's not. I don't see much changes here exactly. But I mean, anything's better than Ron Rivera. Chico ruined Antonio Gibson. Chico ruined everybody. Like I can't. I was as a guy from Chicago who's an NFC Bears fan and an AFC Dolphins fan. Those are my 2 favorite teams. I just don't understand the whole. I was always a fan of Ron Rivera, but just not as a coach. You know how that works. I mean, the guy
I agree 100%. I like him as a person. I still think he's a good dude. I just man, if anybody you felt like got way too much time in one place, it was Rivera. It just felt like he was like doing nothing there. Yeah, they had to make a move. I actually had on the show sheet, they're the one team with the open head coaching job. And then until this morning, it came out that Dan Quinn, Cowboys defense coordinator, ex-Atlanta Falcons coach, he's been a bunch of places, but he is now going to take over there for the Skins. They've got a pretty solid D, even though they turn around and trade away Sweat and some other guys. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of the rebuild for them there.
How do you take him over
Sam Howell's? I was going to talk about that one again later, but I'm really he's the one guy I'm absolutely shocked that no one hired Rabel as a head coach, and at least how he didn't get a coordinator job at least blows my mind.
Yeah. Blows my mind is right. Yeah. Well, I see you put on a show sheet over here. Sorry, JT.
That's all right. I'm going to talk about it eventually, but we're fine.
Falcons, Arthur Blank out, Raheem Morris in.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see what Morris can do on a second go around. Obviously, didn't have a very good tenure with the Bucks, but also, I mean, I know some people bring up these guys and are like, well, he was coach there and he had a terrible record. Well, some of these guys too, when Morris took over, I don't know if he was the youngest head coach in the league or if he was like second youngest, but he was real young. And some of these guys, you've got to have some failures. You go to a team, your first head coaching job, not all of them are great setups. Usually if you're getting the job, it's because the team's not very good. So I think he is going to be much better second go around. He's kind of learned some more stuff. I think being around McVay in LA with the Rams is going to help him kind of look as offensively differently. I think he's bringing over the offensive coordinator, or at least the passing game corner there for the Rams. So I think that's a good hire. So I like it. I definitely think it was time for him to get another shot.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Panthers, Frank Reich out, Dave Canales in. Frank Reich just seems like a great coach, but he just can't. I don't know what the story is with him. Like he just can't translate his locker room, or his players don't really. I don't know what is. You would know, I guess. Tell me about Frank Reich.
Well, so when Frank Reich was hired by the Colts, I actually was really fired up about it. I thought it was a great hire, and I think he did a good job the first couple of years. And for some reason, like near the end, it just kind of all deteriorated. It was like I don't know if he just wasn't getting through the players, what's going on. I know the Wentz situation absolutely buried him. Like he pushed hard for Wentz. Like he's like a big Wentz guy. He loved Wentz when they were in Philly. He pushed hard for them to draft Wentz. He wanted Wentz bad for the Colts. And when it came there and it didn't work out, I think that was like the last straw for everybody. They're like, hey, we did everything you wanted. We grabbed the QB you wanted, and it's not worked out. So when they moved on from him, I was a little surprised they fired him midseason. I have to be honest. I thought the Colts would at least go to the end of the year. But I was like, he'll get hired by somebody right away. He's a good coach. Went to Carolina. I actually thought Carolina, preseason we talked about it. I was like, oh, this team's got some pieces. Oh, they got Bryce Young. This team could be in the mix in a bad division. And then as it get close to the year, I was like, man, this team might be a lot worse than I thought.
Yeah.
And then you saw them, and once the season started, you're like, this team is not good at all. And yeah, it was just shambles. I was really shocked that they didn't give Reich at least. I mean, I know they were the worst team in the league, but at least 2 years to kind of like, hey, can I make something happen with this young QB? But they were out on him right away. So the next guy up, I'd be really nervous. I mean, the guy before me just got like half a season as his very first season head coach. Right. But I like Frank Reich. I still think he could be a good coach somewhere, but I think he might have to go back to the OC QB coach area. I mean, I think he thrived in that. I thought he was a good coach, but maybe it's just time for him to take a step back and kind of reevaluate how he was doing things.
Some coaches just are better. Like Lovie Smith, for example, great head coach. One of my favorite head coaches of all time in the NFL. The guy, I mean, he's kind of like Mike Tomlin, where he didn't really have losing records at all. He won a lot, but I think Lovie Smith was averaging like, 9 or 10 wins a season kind of thing like that. But the Bears just wanted to get something better. And it's like, what's better, man? Like, I don't understand like how, but Frank Reich got stuck in neutral. It seemed like the entire team just got stuck in neutral. They couldn't shift gears. They couldn't make any adjustments. Like they didn't almost like he got like brain freeze or brain farts on like how to run an offense or how to make things better. So,
that was the biggest thing with the Colts. If you talk to Colts fans, they just made no in-game adjustments.
Yeah, none.
When Frank Reich was there. There were so many games they were up at half and they looked really good, and then they just got ran in the second half of games. I'd have to look up the stat, but there was one of those seasons where they led the league in second half, giving comebacks. Like teams came back and beat them when they were winning. So, and that's obviously a terrible stat. You don't ever want to be the team that is winning and, leading in the second half the most in the league, and then you end up losing. So they just had a terrible time making adjustments. And it felt like Frank Reich just got into this mindset where he was going to do the same thing no matter what.
Right.
And he just couldn't get out of that. And he just couldn't make any adjustments. It was rough.
I gave him a pass. Well, I don't know. We'll talk. I don't want to go on too long about that. Dynasty Deviant, a lot of stuff out of Charlotte was that Tepper was overreached and that he booted out everyone who wanted Stroud. So, I get it.
I can see that. We've seen it with some of these other franchises. Once you get an owner that is just too hands-on and like in the mix of everything, it can screw stuff up real quick. Like I said, good luck. Who was it that got the job over there? Oh, Dave Canellis. Good luck to him. But I'd be real nervous taking a job that somebody just got fired 8 or 10 games into his first year in contract. But that Panther organization right now seems like a mess. Definitely seems like a mess.
Is Tepper the worst owner in football? I mean, he is. I mean,
I think he probably, now with Dan Snyder gone, I think he does probably take the take the cake.
The trophy, there. You got the crown. Yeah, there's a lot of bad owners. So there's a handful of really bad owners. So I get it, But the worst owner in all of sports, Scott. LOL. Yeah, different Dynasty Deviant. Yeah, that's. There's some bad owners out there. I think Jerry Jones has done a really good job of like that guy who's in the locker room and making the moves. He's done a pretty good job of sitting up in the booth now and kind of being quiet, letting things. If you want to like take a class on like how to be an owner or how you transition from like when you buy a team, don't do this and do this kind of thing. He's got a pretty good like modeling of how he did everything bad or backwards or terrible when he was first like getting into players' faces and yelling at coaches on public TV and MFing people like on live interviews to where he's at now. He still gets in once in a while, but he's made a lot of good positive adjustments on how to be a good owner. Stay away from the team and just be an owner. That's what you're supposed to do, is just be an owner. Chargers, Brandon Staley out, Jim Harbaugh in. Is that like meme where in Michigan he was sitting there with all the fire around the dog and it's like, everything's fine here.
Gotta bail. Well, I mean, would you want to stick around somewhere where you got suspended twice in the last year and they just seem like they have it out for you? And I read another article. I really am upset. I can't remember the name of who wrote it, but they was someone at Yahoo. But just about college coaches talking about how many more guys were going to make the leap to the NFL if they got a chance because of how crazy NCAA is with the NIL deals and everybody transferring and just how little control some of these college coaches have compared to what they used to.
Right.
They used to, they just these had a lock on everybody, and now it seems like they're just kind of at players' whim sometimes. So they're talking about a lot of these coaches will probably look to get the NFL if they can to kind of avoid all that mess. So I mean, Harbaugh, they've been talking about forever. The question was always, where would he go? This Charger team has a lot of talent. They were on my biggest disappointing list this last year. They were my sneaky pick to win the AFC West and make a run in the playoffs, and they were just an absolute mess. Staley was a mess. They had injuries all over the place. Man, for how much talent they had on defense and for Staley being a defensive coach, it was amazing how bad they were on defense most of the year. I mean, I think they were either number one in points given up or right at the top as number one point. It was bad. And this is kind of a crazy situation. Talking about a guy who did not handle being a head coach very well. Staley didn't. He is not one of those guys you felt confident. Anytime he was in an interview talking about people, you're like, oh man, this guy. And he was mind-boggling. I can't imagine being a player on the Chargers being like, that's our guy. Like listening to answer these questions, like just being a jerk off to people because he doesn't know how to answer it because he knows he's screwed, but he's like, what am I supposed to say? I'm terrible. Like it was a wreck. Yeah. So I think for me, I'm a big Herbert guy. I think this Chargers team could be really good. So I'm hoping Harbaugh is the answer there.
Yeah. Scott Kolb. Hey, John, I just read a story they're interviewing in Miami. I just read a story. Staley is interviewing in Miami as the defensive coordinator. I think Miami had a really good defensive coordinator last year. The defense just got hurt. Like I think they lost like 8 or 9 starters last year on the entire defense. And I like Vic Fangio a lot, man. He
went to the Eagles. Yeah, but he went to the Eagles, so he took the Eagles job. So yeah, I mean, there's talent on that Dolphins team, and they're going to be one of those teams. The way they run up and down the field on offense, they're one of those teams that are going to give up points defensively just because the way the game flow is. But I think Staley, again, the guy's been a good coach in the past. He's been a good defensive coordinator. He just looked outmatched as a head coach. He really did. Hopefully he gets some kind of feet back under him. I think he could be good for Miami.
Yeah, some people are just made to be defensive coordinators. It is what it is. So, Titans, Mike Vrabel out. Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan in for the Titans. So, I don't know what happened there, man. We touched on it before, but Mike Vrabel is a very good coach. He got handed the cards that he was playing with at a table that he was, not. I mean, the guy just got the injuries and the players that were forced upon him and what he did with that, he turned a pig into a purse kind of, or a pig's ear into a purse kind of thing like that. The team could have been better, but man, a lot of injuries, a lot of no offensive line, all kind of stuff, all kind of problems on that team. So tell me about that situation.
I thought he got the raw end of the stick there. Huge. I mean, by far. I mean, the guy, it's just it's classic NFL today. It's like, what have you done for me lately? Like the guy turned them around. They made the playoffs. What was it, 4 out of 6 years? They've had a ton of injuries lately. Tannehill's kind of fallen off. Guys are getting older. The defense, I mean, I was shocked that the defense was as good as it was this year because going into the season, their secondary looked like one of the worst in the league. Right. They were playing with a bunch of linebackers that they were trying to, brought over backups from other teams. Outside of Simmons on the D line, you almost didn't know who any of these guys on their defense were. Right. So I actually thought it was a raw deal. I think Vrabel's a really good coach. It just became, you haven't made the playoffs in 2 years. Well, you're out. And I just think that is where you get a lot of these franchises that can start to be consistent losers. That's why is you get a good coach, you get somebody, you have a down year or two, And instead of, looking forward and staying the course, you get, we got to make all these changes. And making changes isn't always a better thing. I think sometimes you're like, it's got to get a new coach and then we'll be better. Will you? You're taking a shot. You got a new guy. Like, how do you know he's going to be better than the old guy? It's just the same way I think, people are like, if we just tank and get a quarterback at the top of the draft, you're like, how many of those guys bomb? And people are like, what if we just do that and get a new coach? We're going to be in the Super Bowl. Like, that's not necessarily the case. If it was that easy, everybody would do it. And you wouldn't have these teams that are drafted in the top 5 for a decade.
The Jets would have won a Super Bowl last couple years in a row. Yeah,
exactly. So that's the one thing I know, go back to the Steelers with Tomlin. I know a bunch of people were calling for him to get fired this year. People are lucky. They're like, well, I mean, who cares if we have a winning season if we lose in the first round of the playoffs? I'm like, talk to a lot of teams that would love to make the playoffs. I tell people, talk to all my friends that are Bears fans that would love to just be in the playoffs, have a shot at the playoffs. And these, and you got Steelers fans are just mad because they're like, just people expect to win the Super Bowl every year. And it's so freaking unrealistic.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I saw a stat the other day, was like 20 years, Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees, and they each won one in 20 years seasons. I mean, and those guys are great. I mean, how awesome was Peyton in Indy? And he only won one in Indy and got to another one and lost another one. But these people, these fans that just think their team should be in the Super Bowl every year, I'm like, that's obviously what you want. That's what the goal is. But it's unrealistic to think you're just going to get there all the time. Also, teams thinking about winning playoff. Well, we haven't won a playoff game forever. There's a ton of teams that haven't won a playoff game in a long time. A lot of these teams go on a run one year and they get 2 or 3 of their wins for the last 10 years in one playoff season. So I know it's tough. Everybody wants to win, and that's the goal. But I just think people are very unrealistic expectations and what to expect.
Yeah, imagine being a Lions fan. You finally get to have
exactly. I mean, years and years and years, and you're telling me I'd rather lose for a decade straight and have a shot to win the Super Bowl. I'm like, really? I'd rather be in the playoffs every year and have a shot, because to me, getting in the playoffs, even if you don't think your team has a shot, at least you do have a shot if you make it in. So I'd much rather have a team that's 9-8, 10-7, and in the playoffs every year than have a team go, under 500 for a decade and go, well, maybe if we lose for a decade, we might end up hitting on a franchise quarterback and getting Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. Sorry, dude, I'd rather just win. I'd rather win and take my chances. And again, people, you're not drafting in the top 10. And these teams are still winning, and people are mad about it. You're not getting the top end talent because you're drafting late because you're winning every year. Yeah. And teams are still doing stuff with still making it work. And then you see teams that are drafting top 10 every year. Every year they're in the top 10, and they still can't put a winning record together. So just having top 10 picks isn't only the answer. You got to have everything together. You got to have the culture. You got to have the right coaches. You got to have, the right players to fit together. Just having high-end draft picks is not going to get it done for you.
And even if you do trade up, there's nothing guaranteed. Look at the Panthers with Bryce Young. And then I think the only team that really evaded that whole situation was San Francisco 49ers drafting Trey Lance with all those picks and then still making it to the Super Bowl. That's a rarity. That's not the norm. That doesn't happen.
They lucked out because they were a team that already had all the pieces around. They had a ton of pieces. They've been solid. But people forget about them. They were, unbelievable in the 80s with Montana and then early 90s with Steve Young. But then, you know what? When all those guys went away, they bombed for a lot of years.
Yeah.
Those Niner teams for about a decade were terrible. Now they've started to turn it around. Not everybody gets lucky enough to make a move and get Christian McCaffrey, who I think is the best non-quarterback in the NFL. You get a nice trade for him, and he's not even costing them that much because the Panthers are paying a ton of his salary. So it's and
stupid Panther stuff.
Everything's got to go right for you. It's just the way it is. Everything's got to kind of go in that right direction. And very rarely are that team that you have the right coach, Andy Reid, and the right quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, that you're there every year. It doesn't happen that often. And I think the fact that they are there all the time everybody's got in their mind that they should be able to get there every year too. And it's like just not realistic.
Well, hot take. This is Andy Reid's going to retire after the Super Bowl, and now we know where Bill Belichick's going after this year. He's going to take the Chiefs head coach job. That's my hot take for the offseason, okay?
That would be pretty interesting.
Yeah, very good. All right, so let's move on to Senior Bowl chatter. All the stuff going down in Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl is just, it's just chatter right now. If you want to find out more about any player, do the research. Do not fall for all this sorcery that people are telling you that's going on. This guy had a great day. This guy had a great game. He made an unbelievable catch. Guys are just trying to make content out there, like, showing their video or, getting their name out there, or just kind of coming up with something. Everybody's going to make good plays once in a while. Watch the whole guys. YouTube's got highlights. YouTube's got lowlights. YouTube's got, mid-lights, whatever you want to call it. I mean, they have everything. If you want to watch a player, watch game per game. Go to all 22 films, see how they did. Make your own kind of. It's nice to hear all this stuff and kind of make notes and compare all the notes from everybody else saying, like, that's what I do. I listen to podcasts, document stuff all the time. This guy said that. This just for stuff to look out for, but don't just believe everything everybody says all the time too. Make your own kind of justifications or your own observations. So it kind of sucks, JT, because me and you were supposed to go down to the Senior Bowl, and I got as soon as I got like my ticket, I'm like, Jorge Edwards from Fantasy and Frame sent me the link to apply for it. I'm like, yeah. And like a couple days later, it's like, you got the parking pass, you got this. I'm like, yeah. And then my boss, like, we are not awarding any vacation requests for these time periods because Bob and Joe are both having babies around this time. We're not sure what's going to happen. So just try and not take off for this like 3-week window. I'm like, oh, great. Right in the middle of that 3-week window is the Senior Bowl. That worked out
exactly.
Awesome,
So, yeah, and I'm in our county that I live in. We are having our restaurant week this week. So been having a specialty menu, doing all that. So things have been crazy for me and you. So me and you were hoping to go and couldn't make it happen this year. But like I said, been watching stuff because there's a lot of guys that they seems like they have a lot more talent there this year than they have in years past. And I feel like they're doing a good job the last couple of years of really starting to get guys to get in there and get coaches down there so that players want to play in that because they're getting a chance to raise their draft stock.
Yeah, guys like Ladd McConkey right now is impressing everybody, making good, routing good routes, making all the catches. I mean, we all saw how good he was, in the championship game. So I don't really, I just don't understand how, some of these guys don't want to go to the Senior Bowl. Like, why would you turn down a request to go to Senior Bowl if you think you're going to a good player or expect to get drafted? Why would you turn that down? I understand if you're one of these guys who are really, really good. And you're a senior, I understand, but if you're a low-lying fruit kind of, like, why wouldn't you go to the senior?
I think if you're an automatic, like, it's looking like you're almost for sure first rounder. I can see guys maybe not wanting to do it, especially some guys that came out early. But it used to be all about just the combine in Indianapolis, and then you started seeing guys bail on the combine and only do their pro days at their schools. And so I think the big thing for this with the Senior Bowl is it's not just a game. You're seeing a whole week of practice. You're getting to see a ton of one-on-one drills. I think that's a big difference for coaches because, like, guys can have a bad day and come back and show out the next day. You know what I mean? So coaches get more than just that one snippet of like, oh, were they really good or really bad? So I think that helps guys. And again, I think, if I'm one of those guys, man, I want to help my draft stock as much as I possibly can. Now, does it hurt some guys' draft stock? It does. I mean, but that's the risk. You got to bet on yourself. I think some of the wide receivers have looked really good outside of Ladd McConkey, who I think has been great. Roman Wilson from the Michigan, a guy who didn't have a bunch of catches because they didn't throw the ball a lot. He's looked really good. People have been really psyched about him. A guy that's been all over the place. People can't decide whether they won't like him or not is Xavier Legette from South Carolina.
Right.
He's the guy I like a ton. I got on him. My boy Andy Pham got me on him. We do a Debbie show together, and he was like, oh, this Xavier Legette guy is blowing up. Now, everyone that does analytics hates him because he didn't break out till his 5th year of his senior year. He basically did nothing his entire career and then had a great year this last year. Also, they came in, the thing was he was supposed to be another DK Metcalf. He was supposed to be 6'3", 235. Well, they came in, did the measures. He's not. He's 6'1". He's 6'1". He's 220. So it's like, so people are like, oh, well, he's not the huge guy. I still think he's got a ton of athletic ability. I think he's strong. He's obviously not as big. He was a guy people were like, oh, he did not have a first good day, but then he had a really nice day yesterday. where he made some great catches, was really running some nice routes. So he's a guy, who's going to take a shot on him as a 1-year wonder in the NFL draft. I've seen him mocked as high as the end of the first round. I think he's more of a second round guy, but I've seen him as low as third round for some people's boards because they're just like, I don't know what I'm getting out of him. But he's a guy I like a lot. He's one of those guys I would love to take that second round flyer on in a rookie draft, depending on where he ends up going. So that's why I maybe don't want to trade away that pick. The guys I think have really hurt themselves is the quarterbacks have not played very well. A lot of these guys have not looked good. The one guy that's looked pretty good is Pratt from Tulane. To me, he's been the guy that's kind of maybe raised the stock the most. Bo Nix has not looked very good. I was worried about Michael Penix just because, like, he's one of those guys, man, his 3 wide receivers were amazing at Washington, and they had just a great offense there. He has struggled a little bit because he just doesn't have the same guys to throw to or making them look good. So those guys are people are talking about them in the first round. I'll say it right now. I will be shocked.
Right.
Absolutely shocked if either of those guys go in the first round. I just don't see it. I just think they're more projects for guys that are a little bit older. I definitely think people will take a chance on them, but man, I don't see either of those guys in the first round for me.
Carter Bradley making a name for himself, throwing all over the place, guys like that, that's why you go to that's why you go to Senior Bowl to do stuff like that, get noticed, those kind of buy yourself a little bit of I love the way Michael Penix, like Michael Penix, like I hear a lot of people saying that on their thing, like making fun of the guy. I think I've always heard Penix everywhere, but I people that don't like him call him Michael Penix, and it's, it is what it is. So I tried not to laugh when you said it again, because I hear everybody that makes fun of him saying it, but it is what it is.
Oh, I've seen some crazy funny memes that I won't get into, but I just, he's a guy, man. He had a great season, was up for the Heisman, a ton of injuries his early years at Indiana. I just think, man, guys are going to go through the medicals and they're going to be real worried. I just think these NFL teams are going to be real worried when they look at the medicals. And again, I just think he was a guy in a great system. Everything worked well for him. I'm not going to bash his college season because he was awesome this year. He was awesome. But some of those guys just don't translate the NFL. And I just think he's a guy that's going to struggle at the next level unless he figures out how to get in the right system with a offensive coordinator that really knows how to utilize him. But he's a guy I'm worried about. He's not on my radar to draft in rookie drafts for fantasy.
Penix is not an NFL quarterback from Jerry Bagshaw. Right? There's been plenty of guys who are not. It's not easy to be an NFL quarterback. There's only 32 of them in the world that can, and even those guys don't do it that well. So, not everybody's an NFL quarterback. I mean, you can only do so good in college. You can only look so good in college, and depending on what conference you're in, you could fool people with stats, and you could fool people with a team around you that carried you, or you could fool people with good coaching. But when it comes down to it, and it's your stage, and you got to produce. It is what it is. That's just kind of how it works. Not everybody is going to pan out.
Yeah, and some of these guys, I think it quarterback more than anything really matters what team you get drafted by, what the coaching staff is there, how they can develop you. I just seen some guys that I think if they would have ended up in different organizations would have had a really nice career, and they just bombed out early because they just were in a bad position. So, you never know. Maybe he drops in the draft. Maybe he ends up on a really good team with a really good organization. Somebody gets injured, he gets a chance to play, and he blows up, and he's great. It definitely can happen.
Right.
But he's just a guy that I'm a little worried about him. I don't see teams spending high draft capital on him.
Yeah, that's it is what it is. But anyway, teams that are in the Super Bowl right now that do have good players are the Chiefs and the 49ers. So we'll transition to this right now. Now, I did not expect the Chiefs to be in the Super Bowl. I thought it was Buffalo for real. We'll go over each of our picks or our thoughts anyway. I think everybody had the 49ers kind of penciled in as one of the favorites anyway to get in the season. But I mean, the Chiefs beat the Ravens, which I thought the Ravens were a better team, but the Chiefs were just out-coached them, I think is what happened there. And the Lions with a feel-good story. I really wanted a Buffalo and Detroit Super Bowl, the neither team that ever won a Super Bowl. Just seeing one of those teams go nuts, and you could have Lions fans breaking tables in the parking lot before the game. You had Eminem and Taylor, or Eminem and Josh Allen, anyway, my favorite quarterback, like doing their thing, having it is what it is, man. That's why you play the games. But I mean, the Packers beat a pretty good. I mean, the 49ers beat a pretty good Packers team. The Chiefs beat the Bills, who I mean, you had said a million times on shows before that you thought the Bills were probably going to be the Super Bowl favorite anyway, and for the Chiefs to go through and mow down the Dolphins, the Bills, and then the Ravens says a lot about the Chiefs, man. What are your thoughts on the playoffs?
Yeah, my preseason prediction was, if you go all the way back, John, when we did our show on the Stu and JT Brew, my main show, where we went through the schedule and kind of picked records for the year, over unders, all that stuff. I had the Niners with my number 1 seed in the NFC, and I had I had the Chiefs as the number 1 seed in the NFC, or the AFC, excuse me. With the best record in the AFC, but I actually had the Bills making the Super Bowl over them. I had the Bills upsetting them, and it being Niners-Bills was my preseason Super Bowl prediction. I did think, like, when the Chiefs had some bad games earlier in the year, I was like, this team's going to end up with not the best record, but then no one's going to want to play them in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
No one's going to want to play him, and that's basically what it came down to, because they just make plays when they need to make plays. They just have shown up when they needed to. It hasn't been the prettiest games. They've had other seasons where they've looked a lot more explosive offensively, but the defense is better than it has been in the past, and offense is doing just enough to get it done. So I think this is going to be a really interesting Super Bowl. I just watched yesterday on NFL Network. They were replaying a ton of Super Bowls, and I watched the one between the Niners and the Chiefs a couple years ago and watched that one down the end. I'm still angry about that one. I had Williams as the Super Bowl MVP, and Mahomes got it over him, which I was really upset, because I think it was like plus 3,500 or something insane, but he had like a bunch of touchdowns. I still think he should have won that. But that was a close game. Niners were up 10. I forgot the Niners were up 10 and going into the fourth quarter in that game, and then the Chiefs scored on 3 straight touchdowns in the fourth quarter to end up pulling away and winning that game. Right now, Vegas has us as a -2 for the 49ers. Over under is 47.5. I'm on the Niners. I took it at the beginning of the year. I'm on the Niners. I'm actually going to parlay that, the -2 with the over under, and I'm actually just going to move the over under down a couple points to 44, give myself a little bit more room to clear that. But I'm going to go the over 44, and I'm taking the Niners -2. It's tough to bet against Mahomes and the Chiefs. It really is. But the Ravens screwed up. They did not run the ball against the Chiefs. That was their game all year, and then all of a sudden they didn't run the ball at all. The Niners are going to run the ball. And if you're going to beat the Chiefs, that's the way you're going to beat the Chiefs, is running the football with Christian McCaffrey. I'm loving the Christian McCaffrey overs. I have a couple special bets on him that I'm taking. I've already jumped on him for the MVP. CMC is my guy. I've been touting him all year. CMC for MVP on the old X. I still think he was the best player in the league this year. I know everybody says MVP goes to quarterback. I think that's ridiculous. It shouldn't automatically be a quarterback award. And I think he had the best season of anyone in the league. I think he should win MVP and Offensive Player of the Year, both awards. But I just think he had a monster year. I'm going with him and the Niners in this one.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take the under here, just because of the fact that I think both teams need the run. They both have very good defenses. They both have explosive playmakers, but they both have a lot of gadget players too. They don't have a lot of there's a handful of CMC going to take it to the house kind of runs, or there's a handful of Mahomes finding people downfield every once in a while. But Rashee Rice is not a burner. He's a middle of the field guy, more of a red zone kind of guy. And I don't know if they want to trust MVS kind of players, going deep in the Super Bowl when they need to win. So I'm going to take the under here. I think it's going to be a lot of good defense and a lot of running. So that would be my prediction. If anything, I would try to maybe push that number up a little bit and grab the under where I can. But as far as the team's concerned, man, it's so close. These are both good teams, good, well-coached teams. I just Brock Purdy's got to have a really, really good game to keep them into it, because Mahomes doesn't make that many mistakes. But Mahomes' problem is he has to have his team not make mistakes to keep them in the game. It's not Mahomes. It's a team that collapses around him. So it's kind of like one of those things where the quarterback needs a team, and on the opposite side of the spectrum, the team needs a quarterback to play. So Defensive wise, they're solidly coached. They got good players across the board. I think it's gonna be a great game. I'm taking the under. That's and as far as I'll stay away from which team's gonna win because I think it's too close to call as far as that goes.
Yeah, but if you're looking for MVP odds, I'll just throw them down to you real quick. Right now, Mahomes is plus 125. Purdy is plus 225. I'm on CMC at plus 475. Kelsey is at plus 1200. Obviously, if the Swifties could vote on MVP, I think that would be a steal. You'd jump on him immediately at the plus 1200. Debo is an interesting one for me for the rushing and receiving aspect. Debo's plus 2000 and Pacheco is plus 2800. The one real interesting bet is I know we got to close out the show here. I saw Debo special on DraftKings, one rushing TD, one receiving TD, plus 2,000.
Wow.
I'm probably going to sprinkle a little cash on that one as he just missed it last game.
Yeah.
He had a catch that he just missed the end zone in, and he had 2 runs that he got tackled on the one. So I could see that happening. But I'm definitely going to deep dive in here for next week in some Super Bowl bets because this is the best time of year to bet individual props on the game because there's so much stuff they put out there for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, in the back of my head, like Debo and Pacheco are the 2 players I think non-quarterback players who would have I mean, obviously CMC is a game changer, but to be dark, I wouldn't say dark horses, but Debo and Pacheco are guys who, with the ball in their hand, are most explosive players to make something happen during the Super Bowl. So I don't know why those odds are so low or high like that. I mean, I'm going to take a chance on those 2 bets for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, I like them. I mean, obviously, you look at it, MVP almost always wins it unless you can get something kind of crazy happen. That's where you can kind of make things happen. So if you look at it, what was it? The last Super Bowl they played in 2020 against each other. That was the one I kind of went on a limb at KC. I had KC winning it, and I had actually taken Damian Williams at plus 3,500 to win MVP. It was a long shot, but I liked the bet. I thought he could have a good game. He had a really good game. I think he got gypped out of the MVP. He had 140 yards rushing in that game, had a touchdown rush, but he also had a touchdown catch in that game. He had a run that got called back on the half-yard line that Mahomes ended up running in. I think if he gets the 3rd touchdown instead of Mahomes running, I think he maybe had gotten it. So that was my one. I was really upset. I looked at defensive ones. There's nobody that really jumped out at me because I just think the offenses are going to be too good. Usually for a guy to win on defense, it has to be an absolute dominant performance by the defense, and you have to have the offense really have nobody do anything. I think the last guy that won it was Von Miller, which I also was on for the Super Bowl. I had him in that Super Bowl for the Broncos versus the Panthers, but I also thought the Broncos weren't going to do a lot offensively. So I did look at a few of them. Nick Bolton, my Mizzou guy, behind me. I'm probably going to sprinkle about $10 on him because I think he's at plus 20,000 or something for MVP. It's something crazy high, but I'm going to throw a little on him. He did have a touchdown last Super Bowl, and he almost had 2. He had 1 called back. So shout out to my guy, Nick Bolton. So I like him as well.
I can't believe you're popping up a Missouri guy. Go figure. Man, who would have thought?
I know, right? Crazy talk.
All right, JT, where's all the places they can find you around this wonderful world of X and the fantasy football world?
Yep, you can find me at X at JT Orange. You can also find me on my show, The Stew with JT Brew, on Dynasty Pros Football channel. Check that out. If you're into IDP or in that kind of stuff, I do IDP rankings, and I've got my rookie IDP rankings now up at DLF. So if you're into that and you subscribe to DLF, you can check out my IDP stuff there.
Well, thanks for joining me on the maiden voyage of the Dynasty Evaluation Show. There's still a Commissioner Evaluation Show. I'll pop up. I'm going to try and keep all these things going, do the socials over here and at Fantrax with my neighbor and my friend, Nick Script, try and get some stuff going over there. The last couple of weeks have just been kind of a mess with extra coverage shifts and things like that. So excuses are excuses, like buttholes, everybody's got one kind of thing, but I got to start producing. It's been a lull. Everybody, I'm watching football. I'm one of those guys. I can't take notes during football games. I just want to watch the game and enjoy myself and worry about that kind of stuff after, So I like drinking beer with friends, having a good time, enjoying the game. And, I'll be a journalist one day, but right now I'm still a football fan more than I am anything else. So
always got to be a fan, John. You got to enjoy it.
That's why we do this stuff, man. We have a good time. I have a great time with Jorge, all the guys at Fantasy and Friends, Nate, the whole crew, Nick and Colin, and the guys and yourself, Fantrax people. There's just so many good people in this industry. And thanks for joining us today on our show. And we will see you around. John McGlynn 75 on the X. Have a good day, everybody. Thanks.